Good morning, friends. Today I'm going to make this video concerning the events of yesterday, the statements and tug of war and deception and push and pull and spinning floors and spinning zones and so on. So the first comment I'm going to make is this. Bayerbach said that, and please don't take this personal, Bayerbach. It's just a political comment. You can disregard it, ignore it all you want, and click and delete. She said that she doesn't want to impose sanctions on Putin's because she wants them, she wanna keep them guessing. Really? I mean, so guessing what? That you're gonna sanction them or not sanction them? That's easy to guess. It's 50-50, right? Not just that. Bayerbach told them that she's gonna keep them guessing. So here goes how they do it in Moscow now. They're gonna pull a clover. She's gonna sanction me. She's gonna sanction me not. She's gonna sanction me. She's gonna sanction me not. She loves me. She loves me not. Oops! I mean, she's gonna sanction me. Right? She even the reports are all over the media, right? That she's gonna keep them guessing. So they're gonna start guessing. You know, like guessing game, right? Now that's point number one. But when I am making videos and talking, it's really the people, not the establishment in Germany and here and there. For these are already in the clutches of the Putin family. If not directly, then by the same framework, if you will. I honestly don't expect much from them now. It's not like they're that establishment in Germany or France or elsewhere in the European continent or subcontinent is under duress and they have no choice. No, used to be probably when, possibly when Willy Brandt was chancellor, and then Kohl, Helmut Kohl, and the others just around World War II. Perhaps they were under duress, but not anymore. That has been filtered out so far, and now the establishment is, strictly speaking, a Putin parallel and tentacle, just like Putin is for that tripod of that creature above. But European citizens, things are very serious now, and there's a stage and there's something taking place. You can question what I'm saying all you want, and you may say, what is this guy talking about? We don't see that. Sure enough, you didn't see that when communism took over in Moscow, and Lenin and Stalin, the two brothers Lenin and Stalin. Oh, you didn't see anything. Or when the Nazis took over, you didn't just not see anything. You were too happy about your very enemy. That Putin's parallel attachment to parallel with Putin to that same mother. So right now is what's going on is very got some very ominous signs in it. The events and the landscape and the approaches and so on. So dear Bayerbach, or German citizens for that matter, don't wait until things happen. Your governments in Europe, Western Europe, I think with exclusions of probably Sweden and Norway, and I'm not sure about Denmark and Finland and the Baltics, with exclusions, probably. I am not certain about that anymore. Aside from those, every other government will make sure that Putin's progress and advancement and expansion into Western Europe, and it's going to be slow and easy because they learned their lesson from the past in like Mongolism and Mongol movement, as well as communism, as well as other things. So it'll be slow, but make no mistake, what's taking place and what is spreading under the night. I couldn't put it better than JFK, you know, rest in peace. Now, let me go back to something else that is very important, and that is Putin committed to or carried out a nuclear test and so on, like missile test and so on in Belarus. Folks, these are scare tactics, and the purpose of that exercise and that farce is to get into the heart and mind and soul of the European people, because they don't want nuclear war, and that's what he's trying. The scare tactics now are as intense as it gets, one of which is really threatening nuclear war and so on. Look, folks, it took 50 years of Cold War. It didn't happen. It's not going to happen now. It was far worse back then than it is now. And it didn't happen. And I assure you, if and when JFK was alive today, and Lizard Eyes carried out a nuclear test in Belarus, JFK would have traveled to Kiev, made a speech, offered the support, and wavered support to the Ukrainian, just like he did when he traveled to Berlin and made that speech. And I still remember him, he says, Ich bin ein Berliner. Remember that? So right now, the establishment in the United States, Canada for that matter, you know, partly in Canada, and France and Germany, and let me stop here and say they're parallel to Putin's, and they attach to the same mother, basic and simple. But the future as it is planned and the way I discern it, and the outlines are very obvious so far, is really the tripod. It's Chinese regime, Iran's regime, and Russia's regime. And in fact, Scholz and Macron showed you that when they went and met with Putin, you know, like how they tried to insinuate people that this guy is like a slug, like a boulder in the way, and you can't remove him and so on, and they have to like be secondary to him. Don't fall for these tactics, folks. No, don't. Scare tactics. Now you may say, well, look, we don't want problems. And my answer to that is very simple. And I learned this, I didn't invent this. Problems are already in your house. Problems are already in your house. Problems are already in your backyard. Problems are already on your roof and under in your cellar and under your house and so on. And it's a matter of time before things take shape. And then you, Europeans, realize that after a few thousand years of existence and identity and society and so on, things are about to run out for you. You're on borrowed time, let's put it this way. But you can stand up. So what happened in Belarus the other day, the ballistic missile being fired and so on, it's really scare tactics. Now let me go back and say, but here is the deal. How long you think you're going to be under that fear and under that threat that Putin will pull that gun every time, you know, like the new weapons of mass destruction gun, and wave it at you and, you know, demand what he wants. You do this, or I wave the ballistic missile and so on. How long are you going to live like that? If he takes it out and wins the first time, he is going to be bolder the next time around, because for him, it worked. And believe it or not, these tactics are well-known tactics. They're desperate tactics. They want people to basically capitulate and respond to him. And then the grassroots movement, which is countering the invasion and expansion of communism into Europe now, not in the past, I'm talking now, could be resisted, could be changed, and so on. That's what he's trying to change. Basic and simple. You know, like now your politicians, possibly in Ukraine, I don't think so. I hope not. They will come to say, and look, you know, we can't handle this, you know, they're like, they have nuclear weapons and so on and so forth. But that's a constant fear and a constant ever-growing threat. I'll give you an example on that. Here in the US, unfortunately, some communities live always in poverty and unprivileged and so on, to the degree that if you drive in their neighborhoods, you will be horrified to how those people live. But here and there is what's called robberies, right? I don't think it happens as much in Europe as it happens here in the US or even in Canada. But in the US, it happens a lot. And here's how it goes. Suppose a robber came into a gas station or a food store or whatever it is, pulled his gun, like his ballistic missile, and then he asked for the money in the drawer, and you give it to him, right? But there's no police, right, to stop him. What do you think is going to happen? Just think about it. Because now he tasted free money. He or that criminal tasted free money, right? Because the gun brought him money. He doesn't have to work, he doesn't have to think, he doesn't have to put anything, right? The robbers have lizard eyes. So anyways, what do you think is going to happen? Get ready, because he's going to come back next day, knowing that there will be no punishment or consequences. And he's going to pull the gun again. And eventually, lo and behold, there is an income, daily income for him. He comes, and now he knows, that robber knows that when your cash drawer is full and at the end of the day and so on, it's very simple. In fact, if there is no consequences for the robber, and the robber knows that he can get away with it every time, a month later, after coming every day with a gun, now he doesn't need a gun. He comes in and he tells you, get the money, blah, blah, and you give it to him, right? When do you think this robber is going to stop? Or no longer think about invading your store and your cash register and so on? When? Just think about it. He never would. That's easy money, and those who think of robbery think of robbery due to two different reasons. One, they're extremely desperate, that they have something that is like family to feed or something like that, and they eventually unable to do anything due to society being so strict and so void of opportunities and money, and eventually they resort to that. And this type usually refrains, and they are very rare, right? And there is this side, the other side, that really the one that doesn't like to work and like live on the, let's put it this way, it's called the lives of others, right? That's Putin, the Putins. The other example I want to give you is a mafia example. When they get into the neighborhood, and you don't notice them, right? But you notice them. But the law, like they always know how to circumvent the rules and regulations and laws, and they put like their police on payroll and so on, corrupt police and so on. There's a movie called Goodfellas, I think Ray Liotta, and this shop owner, who is prosperous and so on, like has a problem, and so he calls on their help. And sure enough, they give him help, right? But then eventually they raid the store. They raid the store and ran the poor guy out of business. And he just basically abandoned the store. And that's what's happening to you now in Europe. Slowly but surely, the Putins have what's called the hyenas approach. 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. That's what they do to a lion who's eating its kill, and then they want to wrestle the kill out of the lion's jaws, right? But they're afraid to engage the lion in direct combat, right? So they do 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. Eventually the lion is mobbed, and then he abandons the kill, and they start squealing and laughing, right? And they start eating like, they go into a frenzy, if you will. So that's what it is, folks. You can't live in this fear of Putin waving that ballistic missile at you anytime. You can't live like that, because it's only going to increase in intensity until he achieves his purpose, and that's taking over Europe. And you can see that the Macrons and the Scholz and so on are going there, and the gesture and the body language tells you right there and then. They're like handing him the baton, right? When they're standing away from him and so on. And then he is leaving them behind. It's a very obvious message, folks. I can't make this any more obvious to you. This is very obvious. This is very obvious. So that's that. Where does Putin, Putin is a continuation. Whether he's dead or alive or sick or Doesn't matter. What matters is his greed and his. You don't know those people, folks. They have certain genetic makeup that puts them where they are because they were always isolated. And the Putins of Russia, they were always isolated. Not the Russians, but the Putins of Russia, and their circle of marrying and so on is very narrow. So they arrive at a point in their genes and in their psyche that they begin to function this way, and they're unable to achieve anymore, like parallel to other human beings, invent and do business and so on and so forth. They couldn't be explained any more than that book of Godfather, like that's how the Godfather exists. He doesn't know anything else, right? And it used to be that they used to have officials and police chiefs on payroll, right? Remember Robert Duvall, saying that the police chief is on the payroll, and then eventually, Al Pacino comes and kills him in the cafe and so on, kills him at Cielazo, right? That's them, man. But now it's no longer like that. Now the mafia is the police chief. Let's put it this way, in Europe at least, and in the Middle East and so on. It's not a perfect picture, folks. It's not going to arrive to be something similar to a brave new world, although they're struggling and they're fighting and so on to arrive at that point. But they'll never get that far. They've attempted that number of times in history before, and their wave eventually receded, right? The only painful side of it is that so many people, innocent people, get killed in the process, right? Civilians. So anyways, there is other things, something else going for them is that they have these secret literature that they inherit and they teach each other that contains a lot of monkey business, like regards to others and so on. That literature you only find on the planet of the apes, sub-ape humans and so on. So that's what I'm saying about what's going on now. What happened in Belarus the other day is continuation of this psychological warfare, scare tactics. Folks, you either do it now or you don't, period. If you falter now in Ukraine, all Europe falters. It's a matter of time. That's all there is to it. That's all I can say. And it's slowly but surely is what they're trying to do there. So that literature monkey business, like of what to do and so on. It's I would say even Vito Corleone would shy away from. So that makes them incapable of carrying out a bargain or an agreement or peer-to-peer, human-to-human dealings and so on. No. Forget it, folks. Those Putins are like that. Now, Bayerbach said something about World War II, that she cannot supply weapons to Ukraine because of World War II. I don't know what that means really, because it's like in World War II, if you consider yourself having made a mistake by allowing Nazism to lead Germany, which turned out to be against Germany, really, enemy of Germany, and not do it now, you're in reverse. Right now, you didn't start a war. War is coming to you. It is an amalgamation of hot war, cold war, weapons, no weapons, psychology. It's a jam and a forest of all these things coming at you at one time. Basic and simple. You cannot now allow those Putins to come to your borders. They will not stop there. They will not stop there. I assure you. When and if and when now Ukraine falters and not be admitted in NATO, Poland will be next. Whether it's next day or the day after, I don't know, but it certainly will. And eventually you're gonna have to sing the same song, or your predecessor or your successor, or gonna sing the same song. Like, oh, we don't want to do that because of World War II. World War II, if you consider it a mistake, it wasn't a mistake. It was evil people leading Germany into something that Germany, I don't think Germany wanted, or even World War I for that matter. But now you will be making a mistake not responding. Now, I made an example the other day, a kind of metaphor, right? Saying that if Ukraine fails now, or is not admitted into NATO, right? Then it will be like Blitzkrieg and the Germans losing the first battle in the Soviet Union. It's not World War II I'm talking about, or Blitzkrieg. What I'm talking about is what happened after the Germans lost the first battle in the Soviet Union. It was a matter of time retreating, and then you know what happened to Germany. Same thing is happening now. If you lose the battle in Ukraine, it's going to come to you, even though you didn't have Blitzkrieg, even though you didn't have anything going on. What you're doing now with NATO is pretty much legal against Russia, right? Against Putin. It's that simple, you know. So the example I made is not really about Blitzkrieg itself, but the consequences of Blitzkrieg and losing in Blitzkrieg. Right now, something similar, virtually speaking, is happening. And if you lose Ukraine, guess what? The movement, that wave is moving ever so slowly, right? And they're avoiding the mistakes of the Muslims, you know, when they destroyed them and they broke the through the fortress walls, and everybody ran out like nations and so on and so forth, and communism was in shambles, and it was minced meat by that time. But the West and Israel helped them recover, you know, through the West and so on. So that's what I'm trying to say here. So the daily fear and the daily threat will only increase, folks. If and now Putin takes over Ukraine, next time he will not even conduct a missile experiment, or have Biden and Johnson and Macron and Scholz, you know, help him in some kind of a propaganda war, or you know, like psychological warfare, or act where they try to scare you. No, next time he will just take over. I don't, even if you get a delay in the action now, say for example, he agrees to hold off and so on, it's a matter of time, folks. If you look at the history of Moscow, even before the last century, they always reneged on their agreements, folks, whether it's Chechnya, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's anywhere else, they always reneged, folks. They have no notion of, like I told you about this secret, sickly literature that they maintain, the monkey business in their Planet of the Apes. They don't just have it as a book on their shelf, right? No. They worked it out in their brains from whenever they were little, and they believe in it, and they work according to it. And for them, it is the thing to arrive at. It's for them, it's race to which mountain. My advice to you, Europeans, is to rise up and go fight that threat from the East. And my advice to you, European establishment, if you really love your country, and you know, if you love your people, and if you can't do anything, just allow them to do what they want to do. If you can, of course, you know, right now is the time. Right now, that's the battle. That's the decisive battle now, is in Ukraine for you, Europeans. So that's where it is. So the scare tactics are going on daily basis, and they will continue to do that. I will repeat myself. I said this in the previous video. If Putin knows that he can take over Ukraine militarily without any consequences, or without risk, or if he's certain that he will be able to take over, he will have done it already, folks. So you people in Ukraine know how to do that. Now I want to tell you something. Here's something that you probably never thought of happened in Syria. We all know that Putin and Iran and China, who were supporting the Syrian regime, are the tripod of Israel. It is no longer a mystery that Israel is supporting the Syrian regime. And it was behind all that happened in Syria. I'll give you an example. Well, I'm going to give you two examples here. The first one is one time one of those Su-24 was shut down in Syria by the rebels a few years back. And this usually carries like so many tons of ordnance, and they were basically dumping on civilians, right? Bunker busters. That warplane was shut down by the rebels. I guess was hit by some bullet or something. It's because they Israel and its umbrella is making sure that the rebels don't have anti-aircraft weapons. And the pilot survived. The pilot, basically, who was dumping on civilians, was survived. And then when he landed, it was the people there was in so much pain of what's happening to the civilians, they killed him. His name is Roman Filippov. Roman Filippov. Filippov is Russian family, and they're here in the United States. We know who they are. They're Israelis, right? Okay, he's a soldier. But here's the other thing. People in Syria started seeing that really it was Israel behind all this is happening in Syria. So they resort to confusion or deception tactics so as to thwart you or put you off their tracks and so on. How do they do that? Military means. So one day, it was always the customary for Israel to send airplanes, jet planes, and they bomb places here and there in Syria. And people started paying attention. So why aren't the Syrians firing missiles at them, right? Like they do in Lebanon now, for example. Iran never supplies Hezbollah with anti-aircraft weapons, right? So it turns out that big leg has those smaller hairs. One is called Hezbollah, right? But then, after all these curious questions and looks and so on and suspicions, the establishment realized that. So Putin sends an airplane, a reconnaissance airplane with 11 or 15 people in it, specialists, who actually monitor the skies. I think similar to AWACS. I don't recall. I don't know what the airplane type was, but it's something similar to a spy airplane. And it was approaching Latakia to land in Hmeimim air base, and sure enough, Syrians shut it down. And they started crying out, like barking in the media, that they thought it was an Israeli airplane and shut it down. Here's how cheap that fuck is in Moscow. He sacrificed 15 of his own army specialists, right, in order to thwart people's attention, right, and to distract people. Sure enough, it worked out. That's how bad that man is. If Russians know what he's doing and so on and what he will do to them, they may actually balk at fighting Ukraine. And I do believe that some Russians are not exactly into this war with Ukraine and so on. So that's what he is, folks. Lizard eyes, looking at eyeing Europe from the east. And he's got like their whole nests in there of lizards as well, waiting for his arrival and making sure that he does. And they're pretty effective there. European people, I can't emphasize enough, you cannot live under this fear and under this threat from the east anymore. Because they're gonna wave that gun every day, and you're gonna just capitulate, and then eventually what? What are you gonna do? Like pick up the entire population of Ukraine or Germany or Scandinavia, pick up and go to Canada? You can't. My only advice to you is, if you cannot do anything about it, don't have children, because you don't want your posterity to be under the rule of Putin's period. It's that simple, folks. This is how serious this is in Ukraine now. This is how serious it is. And those rulers of Germany, hell, fuck shit, like, excuse my language, pretend that you're sick and allow Germans to run the country, like break your leg or something like that. And it happened. Remember Ceausescu, that dictator of Romania who's got dungeons and so on and so forth? There was one of his one of the officers that hung him and so on, rightfully so, is someone he raised, but then suddenly he gets sick, like his leg is broken or his hand is broken, and he disappears. And then the other military officers take over, right? And he attended, after Ceausescu was arrested, he attended his trial, right? Probably a farce, I don't know. But then they realized that he was in on it. And then his wife, Ceausescu's wife, immediately looks at him. She says, I raised you from whenever you were a child. Hey, but you monster, like you raised one from whenever he was a child, and you treat the country like animals, like animal farms and slaughterhouse and torture and poverty and worship you, and so on. Just think about it, folks. That's the type of Putin. It's the Ceausescu, it is the Honecker, it is that mentality. They will never change. It's religion for them. It's not just a mentality, it's a religion for them. So yeah, go ahead, resign. If you can't handle the threat to your nation and to your land and so on, just resign. Let it go into chaos. It's better for Germany and Scandinavia and Eastern Europe and France. It's better for them to go into chaos than succumb to this lizard coming from the east. I'm going to bring up a movie again. Believe me, that movie is very meaningful. And look at it and see what it's talking about. And it's called The 13th Warrior, with Antonio Banderas and some Scandinavian actors, right? And they're talking about those people, bear people, remember, and how they cut arms and so on and so forth. They're talking about the threat of communism of the Putins from the East. You would see it when they show you the features and so on and so forth. Believe me, that movie is so relevant now. You can't believe how relevant it is. Some of it is fiction, of course, but it's really a metaphor talking about that menace from the East. From the East. This is East. I'm pointing toward the East now. Not the Middle East. That Moscow. That Mongol hordes that came from there. Now, I'm going to tell you this. When I say the word Mongols, I'm not talking about the Mongols of Syria or Iraq or no. I'm talking about that movement that went westward and did horrors and mechanical savagery and so on to other people, innocent people, destroyed universities, burned books, and killed innocent people. And their stories as they swept westward is nothing short of horror movies, if you ever seen those movies where that movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre and so on, that's how they were actually. They would hack people and so on. That's how it is. You don't want those people with that mentality to come your way, folks. Not just that, they adopted certain dogmas and so on as they go, but that brain is the same. It's no different. See, watch that movie and that's what's coming your way. Nothing less, folks, believe me. You cannot live in fear. This is it. You either fight and win now or you don't. That's it. It's a matter of time. Or don't have any children. Folks, they can come and inherit the land and they're content with that. Lizards are fine finding dead people and dead animals and eating and so on. That's them. Have a nice day, my friends. I wish you rise up to the occasion and fight off this evil. Now, don't go too far out. See what they've done in Syria, killing innocent population and so on. They don't feel different about you than they feel about those Sunnis of Iraq and Syria. Have a nice day.